My assistant asked me to reschedule my 1-year anniversary trip so she could get married, and when I said no, she went to management and lied saying I agreed to change my vacation, so they came up to me on the sales floor and said it was generous of me to change my plans. Posted by you/honest_kick_5400. The title sounds rough, but hear me out on this. I, 31F, have been managing a little Starbucks kiosk in my store for a little over a year now, and in that time I've had nothing but struggles, mainly with my assistant. We'll call her Betty. When Betty first got hired on, she made a deal with the old manager that she absolutely needs Thursdays and Fridays off but never gave a legitimate reason why she needs those days off in her interview. At the time, I was the bookkeeper, so I heard her entire interview as the bookkeeping office and store office is side by side with each other. Our old manager granted that to her, but it never turned into a written agreement. That was over 2 years ago. Betty calls out sick twice a month after her weekend, claiming she has the flu or food poisoning, but comes back the next day like nothing ever happened and takes 4 10-day vacations a year. Is that stressful on me? Yes, but I've always managed to get through it. However, when I'm sick, which is rare, I have to feel like I'm not functioning to call out. She refuses to cover me or anyone else even though I've covered for her countless times working doubles when she calls out. Betty is always ready at the minute her shift ends to leave whether someone is here or not for coverage and leaves me high and dry. I normally don't care about someone taking vacation if that is part of our compensation. I put my vacations in as soon as my vacation renews so there's no need to fight over it. One of them includes my 1-year anniversary with my boyfriend right after New Year's. Betty came up to me 2 days ago and said that she talked to our assistant store manager about getting January 2nd through the 10th off for a wedding she has been talking endlessly about. I get the excitement, but I told her, unfortunately, that's not going to work because I have January 2nd through the 6th off as January 2nd is my 1-year anniversary with my boyfriend, and I won't be on this side of the state. One of us has to be here. Betty looked at me shocked and said, "Well, can you change the time you go out of town? We already put the deposit on the venue." I looked at Betty and said, "This is why I have the planner for us to put our vacations in so we know when either of us is gone and there's no overlapping issues. I've had this time off approved since the end of July, and I'm not willing to change it or give you my planned vacation time that works for my boyfriend and I before he begins his next quarter of school." I could tell that Betty was furious, and all I got was, "We'll see about that." Betty went up to management today and lied to them saying that I agreed to change my vacation in January so she could get married. Management came up to me on the sales floor in front of her and said it was generous of me to change my vacation for her life plans. I was furious. I turned to Betty and said, "What on God's green earth made you think it was a good idea to lie to management? I have never stopped you from taking a vacation in the past, nor did anyone else here. But I told you I'm unwilling to change my anniversary trip to another weekend so you can get married. I'm sorry you'll be losing money, but you have to pick a different day." This is where I turned to management and told them, "If you still approve this, not only will I go to corporate and the union and complain, but you'll be looking for a new manager for this department. I will not be treated this way for one person to get whatever she wants." Betty was infuriated with my response to the point where I saw her starting to cry as she said she needed a minute. A slight part of me feels bad for blowing up, but in this situation, she only did it to herself. Am I the jerk? Relevant comments. Commenter 1, NTA. She doesn't get to lie to management to get her way. You claimed the days first. Be aware, she's likely going to try to sabotage. You and your manager need a plan ready to go if she quits right before or just doesn't show up. If you're caught unaware, it's 100% on you guys. What country are you in that she gets this much PTO? 4 10-day vacations? I have zero problem with her getting Thursdays and Fridays off, and like it or not, that was agreed to when she was hired. I also have no problem with her not picking up extra shifts. That is not required. She doesn't have to be a team player, and this is not a family. It's a job. Calling in sick on a predictable basis is a problem and should be heavily documented. Explain the issue to your direct manager and to HR. Ask them how you can handle it because it's not all right. Track all of her call-outs with details about when relative to the shift she called out, who was available to cover, what her excuse was, when it happened relative to her other days off, if it was on a holiday or especially busy period, and so on. If you have access to her social media, see if she's posting pics on those days or pics of partying the night before. Build a detailed file. Ops response: I live in the US, and how it works with my company is the first 10 years in the company, you only get 90 hours of PTO. Between 10 and 12 years, you get 100 hours. 12 to 14 years, you get 160. 15 and above, you get 200. Allotted PTO is based off of how long you've worked for the company. I just hit 12 years in July, so I'm at the 160-hour mark. Betty has been with the company for 3 years, so she only gets 90 hours PTO, and the rest is UDO, which employees don't get reprimanded for as it's a requested day off. I do have a year's record of her callouts, but not just her, everybody. Including myself. I didn't want anyone to feel targeted, and I make sure that everyone knows I keep track of this stuff, including me. I have presented her attendance issue not just to upper management but to both district managers on the company's side and Starbucks, since I deal with both. They have spoken to my manager, nothing has happened. At this point, it's on him. I do also have the morning crew alert me if she called out, and I come in sooner as the department is my responsibility to keep it up and running. Another thing I forgot to add in, agreements that are not written with previous management are null and void when new management steps in my company. But Betty goes to the union each time something doesn't go her way, forcing management to roll on their backs. Commenter 2, I'm 31 and got hired right before I turned 19. Technical and community colleges accept people well beyond 18 for education in the U.S. Commenter 3, if the main manager is out, the assistant needs to be present. Vice versa. Basically, a manager needs to be present each day regardless of how it works out. Commenter 4, Betty is an entitled brat, but you could have picked a fight with her on any other time that wasn't her wedding. Ops response, I understand your point. The wedding just came up within the last week, months after I had the time off approved. My boyfriend is in school, and this is during his vacation. It would be one thing if I could pick a different weekend with my boyfriend even with major holidays being a blackout period, but to lie to management to take my vacation time after it was approved months ago is not okay with me. I won't roll on my back for that. Commenter 5, NTA. Why is Betty still employed there? Ops response, we're a union, so it's very difficult to fire someone. Commenter 6, can you go to the union and report Betty since she lied to the management? Ops response, I have talked to my assistant store manager about her attendance issues, and there has already been a problem with Betty going to corporate and making a false accusation on HR. Nothing has been done on their end. I can only make so many suggestions to them about having a documented conversation when they don't seem interested. We are a licensed store. Not a franchise. So we are technically employees under the other company in the partnership, Kroger Company, and union. It's very hard to just fire people in a union. There has to be a damning reason, and fighting for time off that was approved months ago for a last-second notice is not grounds for termination. Dishonesty is, but they don't do anything about it. Commenter 7, it doesn't sound like Betty is doing anything outside of her rights on any of your background info. You're the manager, and if there's no coverage at the end of her shift, that is a you problem. It sounds like you need to hire another person. Ops response, I understand your point. We are a partnership kiosk, not an actual franchise store. I already work 6 days a week and can't work a 7th. That's part of our union contract. If it happens on my day off, Betty is in charge, so it becomes her responsibility to find coverage much like how it is my responsibility to do the same when she calls out. That much I understand, but I tend to work double since my closers can't come in early due to school interference. I wish I was a part of the hiring process, but HR leaves department managers out of that. Commenter 8, did you take a pay cut for this position? Ops response, I actually didn't take a pay cut for this position. I was under the impression that I was going to get a raise for being in a manager position, but they took that away, so I kept my current pay, and the tips make up for it. I developed the habit of tracking things very early on in life, so this is just natural habit at this point. When I was the bookkeeper, management also wanted me in 3 other departments helping out, and I got to a point where I just wanted something stable and reliable for work, and this was my ticket. Commenter 9, have you spoken with the proper district managers of your company about the situation with Betty and the days off? Ops response, I have already spoken to Starbucks district manager in my company, Kroger, district manager about her in one of my planning visits. I didn't have to mention her work ethic as they already knew about it, but I did mention and present how often she calls out, stating that her attendance is a liability. I know it was put in an email because I have it printed out in a file in my locker with my boss CC'd in it, but nothing on his end was done about it. As far as her days off go, that was the least of my issues with her because I have a set day off each week. However, we're going through some scheduling changes to where Thursdays and Fridays off for Betty is not doable for business purposes. I even had to change my day off, which I was fine with. There's a couple problems with a Thursday-Friday weekend for Betty now. 1. Not doable for business purposes. 2. That was a non-written agreement under different management, so that agreement is now null and void. Our current manager doesn't need to honor that. 3. She's pulling everything she can to get her way, even if it means calling the union. Update, 1 month later. Okay, so the original has been posted a month ago, and while plenty of people wanted updates, I waited for more to unfold. For a recap, my assistant, Betty, asked me to reschedule my 1-year anniversary trip with my boyfriend so she could have her wedding, to which I declined. Then Betty went to management and lied saying I would do it for her, only for it to blow up in her face. One thing I forgot to add in the original is that I keep a planner in the department not just for important things coming up like a launch or sale dates, but so Betty and I can put in our vacation and work around each other so no vacation overlaps due to previous problems last year. And yes, Betty is fully aware that this exists. I not only put my vacation time off in the system but the planner as well as soon as my vacation hours renew, all vacations 6 months to a year in advance, so there's no question of it. Fast forward to today, Betty did it again. I was flipping through the planner so for the coming months, I knew what to expect and have a plan weeks in advance of important dates. I knew Betty scheduled her wedding date but didn't know when. I only had the hint that it would fall towards the end of May or early June, in a local park you can rent part of for the day, no shaming, but I know that dates can be switched easier than an actual venue, which works for me as I will be around. For the last 4 months, I have been pretty vocal with my plans. The week of the 21st through the 27th of June is my boyfriend, and I will be going to Yellowstone as an end of school year and summer kickoff vacation. When I saw the month of June, I noticed she wrote in her wedding day falls on the start of my vacation. 3 days ago, Betty looked at me and said, I know you're excited about going to Yellowstone in June, and you've been planning it since the end of March, but I was hoping you would do me a favor and push your trip back so I could have my wedding day. I scheduled it for the 21st. I looked at her in disbelief because apparently she didn't get the hint the first time. Yes, I did have to gather my thoughts because it's clear to me she is doing this on purpose at this point. I calmly told her, no. We have been down this road, and I'm not rescheduling anything I've had planned and approved on work's end for months because you planned poorly. I'll also remind you that we have a planner for these reasons, to schedule around each other's vacations so nothing overlaps. We are both in leadership roles, so when one of us is on vacation, the other has to be here. Betty stayed silent, and I saw her face turn red. But instead of giving her the opportunity to lie to management again, I went up and said something. I showed my boss the planner in our system and that this is a problem she doesn't see. I made it clear, even though it shows one day, expect her to call out the next day or two. I will be in Wyoming and not willing to change anything as this trip is half of my boyfriend's big Christmas present. Management confirmed that her day off has not been approved, and she will need to rearrange the day as I got approved first. Betty did look like she wanted to cry because she is not getting the princess treatment she wants, but she also doesn't realize that other people have lives too. I do fully expect her to call out and leave the department high and dry like she has done many times in the past, especially while I'm gone. We will see what happens. Relevant comments. Commenter, what kind of person books a venue for a day that they know they have to work? Ops response, a local park. She does because we all know she's going to call out, but what she should know since she's called the union so many times making false accusations is that if she calls out on a denied request, then that's grounds for termination.